Good morning. Today, I want to tell you about a local trail I hiked this spring during the quarantine. Ring the Peak is a 63-mile trail system that goes all the way around Pikes Peak. As I hiked it, I asked myself some questions about what motivated the creation of the trail and why people hike it today. Today, I'd like to share those questions with you and then give you some information should you choose to hike it yourself. Starting in Manitou Springs, Ring the Peak connects to the towns of Cascade, Divide, Cripple Creek, Victor, and is around the southwest slope of Pikes Peak to southern Colorado Springs and finally back to Manitou Springs. Ring the Peak strings together trails, gravel forest roads, even a few paved urban roads that you have likely hiked or ridden or driven and passes by many of our famous landmarks. From the base of the incline and the bar trail, the route goes counterclockwise up the Ute Pass Trail to Highway 24 in Waldo Canyon. After crossing the Pikes Peak Highway, the trail ascends Mount Esther to the Catamount Reservoirs on the slope of Pikes Peak. From here, the trail turns south and passes beside Raspberry Mountain and the Crags before popping out at Pancake Rocks. Around the area of Gold Camp Road, the route swings east and connects through Bear Canyon to Section 16 and Red Rock's open space. The route goes east on the Intamin Trail, providing views of Garden of the Gods and downtown Colorado Springs, and finally connects to its starting point at the base of the incline. Ring the Peak is a result of many different entities, but they are spearheaded by Friends of the Peak, a nonprofit organization responsible for much trail development and maintenance in the Pikes Peak region. Building the trail fulfills the organization's mission to advocate for the preservation of Pikes Peak, to facilitate recreation, and to educate the public about the region by making the mountain more accessible to recreators. Currently, about 80% of the route is complete, but two significant gaps remain. Efforts to bridge them and fulfill the vision of a continuous trail that completely encircles Pikes Peak are vigorous and ongoing. From the moment I learned about Ring the Peak, I was determined to hike it and to hike the ring not just in part, but in full. Researching this trail, I discovered the effort going into its completion is remarkable. Impressed by the dedication of trail advocates and aware of my own interest in seeing the objective of Ring the Peak fulfilled, I began asking a question. Why? Why do we want to go all the way around Pikes Peak? What is motivating the community to the hard work of building and then using this trail? What makes this important to members of the community? Do we see at play here a purely local phenomenon, or does the situation surrounding the ring, the Peak Trail, tell us something more broadly about what it is to be human? So, here are some of my personal musings. Friends of the Peak has been working tirelessly for almost 20 years to make this trail a reality. Even though a complete loop around the mountain is not necessary to fulfill the aforementioned mission of the organization, Close the Gap is a rallying cry of trail advocates that won't go away, despite the many challenges the project faces. It is clear that a complete and continuous trail that fully circles Pikes Peak is what is wanted. So why do we want to go all the way around Pikes Peak? Well, perhaps this is just another way to express the urge for physical movement. Meaning, movement is the real objective here. Running, hiking, biking. Perhaps the trail simply provides a medium and a reason, a means and a goal. Each year, hundreds of people hike in their entirety our three great long trails, the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Pacific Crest Trail. Over 400 people in total have achieved what is called the Triple Crown of American long-distance hiking, which means they have hiked all three of these long trails. While thousands more hiked only portions of these trails, the hundreds who completed these 2,000-plus mile routes in their entirety were motivated in part by the impetus to go all the way end to end, start to finish. Going all the way around Pikes Peak seems to me a close counterpart to hiking trails that go point to point. as well as other movement-based obsessions in the US. We are also obsessed with getting to the top of things. There are 260,000 annual attempts made on the summits of Colorado's 14ers. 25,000 people a year can be found on one mountain alone, Colorado's highest point, Mount Elbert. But many people do not stop with summiting one 14er, pursuing instead what can be a decades-long obsession to climb the more than 50 14,000-foot peaks in the state. We are so wild to get to the top of mountains. Going all the way around them seems to hold a similar appeal for outdoor adventurers. We're still asking, why do we want to go all the way around Pikes Peak? As is demonstrated in Mount Rainier National Park in Washington State, where the Wonderland Trail does exactly what the Ring the Peak Trail is attempting to do, fully encircle a 14,000-foot mountain and 93 miles of spectacular trail. In 2017, over 2,500 requests were made for permits to hike this route in its entirety, an effort that typically takes 7 to 10 days. The number of requests exceeded the capacity established by trail managers by more than 500%. If more of these encircling trails existed in beautiful places, it seems we would flock to them, maybe just as another way to exercise our need for physical movement. So again, why? Why do we want to go all the way around Pikes Peak? Perhaps hiking all the way around a mountain is a way to know it. And by know, I mean understand and perceive. Hiking for days, you might learn what makes the Pikes Peak Massif special. The trail passes through many ecosystems as elevations range from 6,400 to 11,300 feet. What are the wildflowers that grow on its slope? What wildlife lazes in its meadows or scampers on its ridges? What are the rocks that make up its mass, and what stories do they tell about its geologic history? What is the people history of those who logged, hunted, foraged, fished, recreated, and simply lived on Pikes Peak? As opposed to gazing from the top of a summit out and away, hiking around puts the mountain center stage. For days, the mountain is central in your attention in a way that is in keeping with the word encircle, which means to pass completely around. Perhaps encircling the peak includes cognitive awareness, a complete surrounding of Pikes Peak with understanding and knowledge. For those motivated to learn, the Ring the Peak Trail could allow its users to truly know the region more deeply and significantly. So again, why? Why do we want to go all the way around Pikes Peak? Maybe we hike in circles because it's instinctive. According to a 2007 study, it is only with visual aids like sunlight and shadow that we are able to walk in a straight line. What is most instinctive may be to walk meanderingly or in circles. When volunteers in a study were blindfolded and tracked with a GPS recorder, having only their proprioception as guide, they walked naturally in circles. Do trails that form loops fulfill a primal longing in some part of our brain? Is this another motivation for the Ring Trail? As mentioned, only 80% of the route is complete. The trail crosses federal, state, county, city, and private property, and each entity manages its land with different processes and restrictions. Trail builders must consider everything from protecting vulnerable sheep herds and municipal water sources to the fears of private landowners about the cost of maintenance, the impact of erosion, and unwillingness to have strangers crossing their properties. In March 2019, headway seemed to be made when the towns of Cripple Creek and Victor approved a route that would close the Southwest Gap and connect the trail from Pancake Rocks back to Colorado Springs. It will be years before the miles of trail approved are actually built, and the gap may never be closed fully, but with modification you can still experience the Ring. Here are some things to know before you hit the trail. Ring the Peak can be day hiked, backpacked, biked, or run. Organized rides and runs take place annually. The trail is easily accessible with 10 access points. For trail planning, the trail is broken up into segments between these points. Careful descriptions of each section as well as clear driving directions to each portal are available on the Friends of the Peak website. The trail is clearly signed with Ring the Peak blazes. Brown signals a clockwise route while green signals counterclockwise. The website also includes maps and clear descriptions of the routes. I hope this assembly alerts you to the presence of a great trail and excites you to hike it. If you do, please tell me if you section hike the trail or go all the way around Pikes Peak. And if you do, tell me what is it that motivates you to ring the peak. Thank you.